Michael Mori, welcome to Booktopia.
Thank you for having me.
I guess we know you as the man who took on the challenge of representing David Hicks, but I want to explore a little bit more about you and get to know you a little bit more. First of all, before we come to the story of that momentous case, your middle name is Dante.
Yes.
And in fact your friends called you Dan, and I think that there's an irony there, given that in a way you've sort of been to hell, you've witnessed the hell of Guantanamo, so it's a very appropriate name. Tell me about the name Dante.
It came from my grandfather was Dante, and I grew up, Michael Dante Mori, but no one ever called me Michael. Only my great-grandmother did, and my grandfather's nickname was Danny, and so they called me Danny, and every first day of school, Michael Mori, I'd raise my hand present, but I go by Dan, and that would be it. And when I got assigned to the case, the Department of Defense put out a press release putting my full legal name, Michael D. Mori, and from then on I was this Michael guy
but
that I never used.
Do you see the irony of the sort of juxtaposition of Dante and the Inferno?
Yeah, I do, but it was a family name, so.
I want to know what made you join the Marines.
What made me join the Marines? I tried uni first time and didn't do so well, and after a couple months I came home on the holiday break, and I was just looking for, I think at that time, I knew I needed a drastic change in my life. And in the States, you really didn't have that option of a gap year, which probably would have been very helpful. I probably could have had a gap year, sowed my wild oats or whatever, and matured a little bit and come back. Instead, I enlisted in the Marine Corps, and off I went for my drastic change in my life, by joining the Marines.
So in a way, can I ask you whether you can see in your decision to join the Marines the same sort of impulse or element that might have caused a young man like David Hicks to go off and do what he did?
Well, look, so many young people at that age finishing high school, what are they going to do with their lives? That's kind of how I was. I tried something. I wasn't being exceptionally successful in the academic side. I loved playing football and partying. And I wanted a drastic change. And I think it's, it was good for me. And I think a lot of people join the military, some for that adventure or do other things, go join the Peace Corps, and for that sense of adventure that we're kind of yearning for at 18, 19 years old.
I'm very interested, Michael, Dan,
Yep.
In where you get your moral compass from, because in the book, when someone asks you about why you care so much about justice, which is really what the essence of the book is about, you reply, because I'm from Massachusetts. Explain that.
Okay, well, let me do two things. First, I don't think I care that much about more about justice than it didn't feel like I was an overzealot about it. I just thought everyone should be entitled to a fair trial, and that didn't seem to be a radical idea. It was the fact that the Bush administration probably had moved so far away from it. So, I guess your question is part of this. I don't think I was doing anything that exceptional. It was the norm. Everyone should get a fair trial, regardless of who they are or what race, religion, doesn't matter. But
yes, but when you answer that question, that means something very specific, and not everybody is from Massachusetts.
That's true. And if you're from Texas, you learn about the Alamo, and if you're from Victoria, you learn about the Eureka Stockade. But if you grow up in Mass, as a young kid, as 5, 6 year, 7-year-old, you're going to Lexington and Concord, and you're going to Bunker Hill, and you're going aboard the USS Constitution and learning the American Revolution and the beginning of it and the cause of it. And one part of that is the Boston Massacre, and you go where it happened, and you learn about John Adams defending the British soldiers who were accused of killing those colonists, and that they were given a fair trial and how important that was, and it's part of our ethos on who we were as a country and the values that it was built upon. And so to see that change with the Bush administration and this whole change of values, and to hear U.S. congressmen say they're the enemy, they don't deserve protections, they don't deserve rights, was just so foreign, at least how I grew up.
What do you think would have happened to David Hicks if he'd been not an Australian but an American?
Well, we know what happened to Americans. I mean, that was John Walker Lindh was an example. He was taken to the U.S. federal court system and charged there and provided all the rights. There were several other Americans, Padilla, who was held in a military brig within the United States. He was held for approximately 5 years or so, a little maybe 6, and then he was transferred to the federal system and tried there. And then there was Hamdi, who was an American, and he was held again for several years. And after winning a case in the federal courts, he was allowed to leave and go back to Saudi Arabia as long as he gave up his U.S. citizenship. So there was this clear distinction on how American citizens were being treated. American citizens would not go through military commissions. That was not acceptable for an American. And yet for Australians and other countries, citizens, it was acceptable, unless that country really took a strong position, like Great Britain did.
Why do you think it's been impossible for President Obama to close down Guantanamo? And do you believe that it will be closed down anytime soon?
I think, if you know, Obama came out very early on, right, I want to close it. He met huge resistance from Congress. Not only for closing it, as well as trying to transfer the military commissions to the federal courts in the U.S. Congress is taking away the funding and fighting it every step of the way. The reality is, I think, is that there's so many people within our Congress and within our government that have careers are attached to Guantanamo and the commissions being a success that they can't afford, at least in their view politically, for there to be a 180 reverse and close Guantanamo down tomorrow. Because the media would jump all over them. Why did you support this if it's now the wrong way? And so I'm not sure if it'll ever be closed until the Republicans and other people see it to be in their political interest to close. And let's be honest, Gitmo in America, I don't think is that big of an issue. Because no Americans are there. It's 160 people, and you know, half are cleared to leave, but they can't find a country to go to. Another group is earmarked for military commissions, and which is not operating effectively. And then you have this last group that are too dangerous to release, but they don't have any evidence to send them to court. So it's going to take both sides to want to close it. And who knows, maybe as we get close to the next election, maybe Republicans might want to close so they don't have to deal with it. And when their president is elected, if he is elected.
So what do you feel when you see what's happening now with America re-engaging in Syria with ISIS, history repeating itself?
We did such a good job in the first Iraq War, right?
And again, foreigners joining fundamentalists and extremists in IS. Yeah. When you see that, there is a sort of resonance there.
Well, look, I just saw an article about an American over and fighting with the Kurds.
Right.
And there's Americans over there with the Kurds. In one way, as a military person, it's shocking people are over joining. You know, Australians were on both sides of our American Civil War. But look, you know, the war on terror is still ongoing. And I probably don't know enough about the particular situations in Syria and Iraq to really say, except to sit back and say, we didn't do a good job the first time. Are we really the solution? And what is the problem? I don't think the media is really covering what is going on. What is the political, sociological issues that are driving this conflict? It's not just ISIS. You know, we did that with Al-Qaeda, created this fictitious group that was someone out there and sort of the media gave a small group a big platform for PR, and we're seeing that with these beheadings. We don't know if that truly represents everybody or is the real motivation. You know, we're seeing a conflict between the Shiites and the Sunnis. We're seeing individual groups within countries vying for power over the huge resources of oil and gas. We're talking about, right, billions of dollars that are up for grabs. And we're seeing countries not helping that you think would help, countries that are trying to help, and which side are they really helping? And, you know, if America and Iran are working together, what does that tell you about what's going on? I don't know. It's interesting.
Have you stayed in touch with David Hicks since he's come back to Australia and
David's kept his life very private, and I respect that and allow it to be private.
But have you stayed in touch with the family?
They're private. They haven't put their lives out in public, so
because I met his father, Terry.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with him, and I thought that
Terry's put himself out there, and he's great. Yeah.
He represented the kind of everyman father that I thought everybody would want to have a dad like you. If I was stuck in the kind of hole that David was stuck in, I would want you as my father. Did you feel like that about him? He was such an impressive
father. Absolutely. Right, he just salt of the earth, and you could see why people connected with him, and it was such a huge boost to getting people to have some concern about his son, and to start looking beyond, you know, what was going on, and is there going to be justice for this person's son?
So if there had been justice for his son, what would that have looked like according to you? What should have happened to David Hicks?
Well, I think it should have been just like the Australian politicians said initially when he was captured. They said it was expected that he would be brought back to Australia and he would stand trial for any crimes within Australia. Except he hadn't violated any crimes. And then there was the political decision to leave him over there, right, and go through this corrupt system because he hadn't violated Australian law. And that was, I just could never get my head around that. And so he should have been brought back and stood trial if he violated law within Australia. If he violated any law of war crime, Australia has the Geneva Conventions Act. They could have prosecuted him, but he didn't. And so, for political purposes, he was left to rot over there.
So, in a way, what your book is saying, In the Company of Cowards, is that justice is corrupted by politics.
Only in this system. What was created in the military commissions system was a new system. It was not the established court-martial system, the established federal court system. It was a political creation where they set up a political system, not a justice system. And where the politics works against us early on, then they helped us later when getting him out. But it was a political system, and that was the problem with it.
But do you still then retain faith in military justice as a process?
Well, here's inter-military justice. There's a court-martial process, which we use to try American service members. And what I thought we were going to use, that process that has procedures, rules of evidence every lawyer would be familiar with. That's what I thought we were going to get involved with and use. But we didn't. We scrapped all that and had the Bush administration's creating military commissions, which I have no faith in.
Can you imagine a day when Bush, Cheney et al. Would ever face any kind of tribunal, because people always talk about accusing them of war crimes?
Well, people talk about that, but have you ever seen any politician ever held accountable, really? They get on and get jobs at big corporations and get appointed to big special positions at universities, and nothing ever usually happens, does it? Nixon? Still got a library.
Everybody gets a library, that's the deal. That's certainly the case. You have 2 boys.
Three.
Three. Okay,
I've got 3.
God, I can't keep up.
I'm in trouble because I only put the picture of the 2 in.
Yeah.
Because those are the 2 that were born during the case, my twins. And so my Tony's going to be very angry at me. But the dedication is to all 3.
Okay, so would you recommend to any of your sons that they join the Marines or that they pursue a military career?
Oh, sure, I wouldn't have a problem with that. Depending what you want to do and your interests lie, whether you do it for one tour, because look at so many people out there running companies that were enlisted in the Marines or served a tour, and they learned a lot from that time of leadership in the Marine Corps.
But I wonder whether your sense of patriotism was changed in any way by what you experienced as a result of the Hicks case.
No. My sense of patriotism didn't change. I think I hate to admit I was probably a little politically naive. And so I think what shocked me the most out of the whole thing is how incompetent these people were. These people went to the right schools in the Ivy League, and they had the right pedigree, and they should have been able to. This was not difficult, and they screwed it up. And to think that these people are making the decisions about life or death in war, and you have to scratch your head. If they can't get this right, how can they do anything else? And whether it's the individuals or the bureaucracy. But this was, what bothered me was this was incompetent. To have an ineffective system didn't bring justice for those that were accused or justice for the victims. It just lingers. And, it's probably that sort of left me with politics. And, just because you went to the right school doesn't mean you might be intelligent, but you may not be smart.
Well said, Michael Mori. Thank you very much.
Thank you.